All right, welcome to the show, Dr. Haley. I am so happy that you're here to talk about a topic that I know very little about, but very interested in. So we're going to talk about gut healing and gut health as it relates to aloe. So can you tell us a little bit about how you got into what you're doing? You're a chiropractic doctor, you're a nutrition expert. So how did you get into dealing with aloe specifically?
You know, Tiffany, I had a patient that, came for his chiropractic care, and he used to always bring in these bottles of raw aloe vera. And he said, you need to be drinking this and you have to put all your patients on it. And he was so passionate about it. I knew there was something special because you don't get this kind of passion without seeing something crazy happen. And eventually I had this patient that had a horrible case of cancer, a stage 4 pancreatic cancer. And I remember having a talk with her saying, if you go the medical route, your odds of being around a year from now are like 2%. If you don't go the medical route and do something radically different, I don't have stats for you. I don't know if they're better or worse. Are
Right.
you with me? And she said, well, 2% doesn't sound good. So what do you got? And this guy used to say, cancer, just have people drink aloe vera. And, he would treat it like the common cold and give people aloe vera.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not that way. But I did tell her, this guy says, if you drink 3 glasses of aloe vera, and there are reasons, scientific reasons why aloe vera would help somebody fight cancer. I said, so let's put you on a lot of aloe vera, but let's also change your diet radically. And I got her growing sprouts and juicing fruits and vegetables and wheatgrass and all, just changed everything, took away all the things that she loved. I kind of told her, you're going to feel horrible for a couple of weeks. You're going to feel like you're starving. You're going to want to throw in the towel and you're going to come complaining to me. Well, which did happen. And I
Mm-hmm.
said, if you just give it a little more time to get over the hump. And I remember it was probably a week after that where she started feeling amazing, having all this energy, and said, I feel better than ever before. Well, she did beat her cancer naturally. She did combine it with medical treatment. It was a short time after doing this protocol where she went back to the doctor and they said, this is amazing. You hardly have any cancer. What happened? In fact, you only have these 2 little tumors now that we can actually go in and take out. Prior to that, it was all cancer. You can't take everything out. There'd be nothing left to run the body.
Right.
Well, at that point, she started adding the medicine to her routine, the surgery, and then followed by a little low-dose chemotherapy. 10 years later, 11 years later now, she's still alive and well. And that made me say, okay, there's more to this nutrition than, than I first believed. I used to think that you can exercise your way into good health and beat anything.
Right. Right.
With her, I didn't put her on an exercise program. So that was a wake-up call for me. And it was also one of those things where, it radically changed what I had learned in school when it came to nutrition, because I learned from books.
Mm-hmm.
But the real learning came after the fact where, and I learned from other people. Rodney Stockton that used to bring the aloe to me, that had an impact on me, and because of his passion, and I saw his testimonials eventually, and I know why he got that passion.
Mm-hmm.
Fast forward, Rodney eventually passed away. He died of a heart attack at 96 years old. Now, Rodney, the only healthy thing he did was drink a glass of aloe vera every day.
Wow.
He looked amazing, but he
At
was at TV
96?
dinners, fast food kind of guy, a glass of aloe vera every day, and he had a heart attack.
And you said 96, right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow.
And about a year after that, the people that had taken over, the aloe vera supply was kind of in jeopardy. And now it's all important to me for my patients. I'm seeing results because after that, my first patient, I started putting other people on it that had other issues. And I'm seeing them get great results, things like, gut healing and things of
Mm-hmm.
that nature, diabetes, lowering blood sugar levels, and people started even losing weight and having other benefits just from adding aloe vera to their diets. And all of a sudden the supply is in jeopardy. Not that there weren't other aloe veras available, but there's nothing like what Rodney had started.
Okay.
Nothing, pure gel, raw, nothing added, not pasteurized, no chemical preservatives. So I actually stepped in and kind of rescued the product line.
Okay.
I thought, well, I'll just kind of keep this going on the side and keep my chiropractic business going. Eventually, the aloe company grew. I didn't stop seeing patients. I still do, but I stopped taking new patients.
Okay.
I got
Gotcha.
overwhelmed.
That's a good thing.
And we're shipping this stuff all over the place now, all over the world. In fact, in the past couple of weeks, we shipped to Ireland, we shipped to UK. We had a shipment going out today to Netherlands. I
Wow.
think that one got canceled, but it's hard
Okay.
to ship frozen aloe all over the world and get it
Yeah.
there in 2 days.
Oh, so
Um,
it comes frozen. I did read that on your website.
Yeah,
Um,
that's our only way of preserving it. So it
okay.
makes it a little bit different than what's out there. We might talk a little bit about that today.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm glad to be on your show.
Great. I'm glad to have you. It's really interesting because, so many of us in this, functional medical nutrition world come through, to do what we're doing because of our own health issues. That was my case. And it sounds like this was kind of serendipity for you with two people that came into your practice that kind of helped each other out, and you were the vehicle to allow that to connect and to work. So that's just a really cool story how
Yeah,
that came to be, and now it's your whole business, the premise of your whole business, it sounds like.
yeah, and we just also told all your listeners that what we actually do is practice. I was practicing
Right.
on someone with a very serious condition,
Mm-hmm.
and she got well. Now, you know, I was essentially repeating what a bunch of other gurus had said.
Mm-hmm.
You have to change your life when you're sick. You have to make significant changes if you want to
Right.
get well and stay well. Something allowed you to get sick, and there's a good chance that you had a say in that by the choices we made in our lives.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some people get sick and they did everything right,
Mm-hmm.
supposedly.
Right.
It doesn't mean that people haven't had, bad luck or bad genes or whatever the case. But for the most part, we all have a good say in our health.
Yes, for sure. So what kind of comes to mind when you talk about what you did with that patient with pancreatic cancer? I mean, the survival rate on that is not good. Like, what did you say, 2%?
Yes.
I think, yeah. So not a good outlook, right? And so what people have to understand, not everybody has that level of condition, but when we hear this mantra all the time, it's kind of a mantra, like everything in moderation. You can do everything in moderation. And for some people, you absolutely cannot do moderation. That's not enough. And I found that with myself.
Hmm.
I had to eliminate a bunch of things. I had to pare way down. I was, thought I was eating well, but it wasn't good enough for my situation. So you have to very much individualize it. And that's clearly what you did with this person. And 11 years later, that's
Yeah.
that's amazing.
I'm going to suggest too, I didn't necessarily recommend the healthiest diet.
Oh,
Fighting cancer is different than winning the Olympics.
right.
They're different diets.
Yep.
One might be, really supporting repair and growth, but we don't want to feed cancer growth foods.
Right.
In a sense, we're going to not starve it, but we're going to detoxify. We're going to cleanse.
Yep.
We're going to work on getting rid of bad things from our life. You're probably not going to win weightlifting competitions on an anti-cancer diet.
Right. That's going to
So
look very different.
yeah, it was a interesting thing, and I've given other people plenty of diet advice, but that was my first real significant case, because when you look at cancer statistics and what is the worst cancer, that's the one that's on the top of the list. But the
Yeah,
question is, if 2% beat it, what do they do differently?
exactly. Yes, because I think a lot of times we look at those types of, the percentages, and we think, oh, okay, well, that's a lost cause and there's nothing to do there. But you definitely approached it differently, and you also had a willing participant, someone who was willing to go all in and do something different, and it obviously worked out. So that's amazing. That's an amazing story right there.
It's a good one. And it was a little, testing for me too, because, here I have someone that eventually says, well, they said they can now take the tumors out. And in my brain, it's like, but how did you get here? Why would you stop the course you're on? But I also recognize there's some benefit to supporting the patient's decisions in there. They have to feel good about it. And if they're convinced that they need some kind of additional treatment, okay. But whatever you do, don't forget what got you to this point.
Right.
You cannot give up the things that got you to this point.
So it's definitely a blend of supporting the conventional wisdom and treatment with these other things that are very supportive of that as well.
Yeah. So with, if we want to get into it with aloe vera, there are a couple of very unique reasons why it would help somebody fight cancer, but we can say the same about a lot of foods, but there's scientific research done with, chemotherapy patients with aloe vera added. And if I was to sum it up, it seems that people that have aloe vera with their chemotherapy or, in addition to, part of their diet, their immune systems are stronger better able to recognize cancer cells, better able to kill them, better able to destroy them for a lot of reasons. So it's a neat thing.
That's really interesting. So outside of a cancer patient, what are some other benefits of aloe vera? I'm sure there's 1,001.
When I took over this product line, I actually decided I have to get out of the cancer industry because I want to be able to continue to provide it. And so I did a little research and realized that the number one reason that people use aloe vera is for gut health issues.
Right.
I find this kind of fascinating because we think aloe vera, that's for your skin, right? You put it on a sunburn. And it is true. If, you went out to the beach and just turned into a lobster and then put let's say you put aloe vera on your hand and you just kind of put it on the sunburn and you didn't rub it in, but you just made a handprint. You'd probably the next day look in the mirror and see your handprint where it actually healed faster than where the burn is.
Wow.
This is after the fact, putting it on after the sunburn.
That's crazy.
Well, research has shown that skin tissue heals in about half the time when using aloe vera. And there's been many research projects. There was a doctor that used to actually study healing in patients that got mastectomies and stuff, where they use the aloe vera to speed up the healing of the skin flaps and things, and going back into the 30s. He well documented it. And then they did actually research with, rats where they hot wrought iron burned. I never like talking about that one, but research was done. So they put aloe on half the rats and not on the other half. And the ones that got the aloe vera, they healed in half the time. There's been plenty of research done to show that the skin heals in half the time. But what is the gut? Right. The skin is this epithelial tissue. I always have a hard time saying that word, which essentially it's a specialized tissue that absorbs and excretes. We can put drug patches on our skin and our body will, drink the medicine that's in them. It'll get into our bloodstream. And then we also detoxify through our skin. The gut does the same thing. It's also this same kind of tissue where it absorbs and it excretes. And consuming aloe vera, it now has to pass through that to get into your body so it can be carried to all the tissues. Well, if it'll heal the skin, why wouldn't it heal the gut and make it speed up the healing process? Now, when we talk about people with gut problems, understand this. Let's say you have ulcers or bleeding problems in the bowels, or, there's how many names for irritable bowel or, Crohn's disease or celiac disease. There's so many names for these inflammatory bowel conditions.
Right.
If we're using aloe vera just to speed up the healing and then it's like, hey, I got well because I used aloe vera, and then you stop, you really haven't done anything good for yourself, because all you did was kind of speed heal and then you didn't change anything. You stop the aloe vera, your problem's going to come back.
Right.
You didn't use it any differently than a drug. So don't think of aloe vera as a cure. Think of it as something that can speed up healing, but we have to stop doing the damage. We have to take away the things that ruined our guts to begin with.
Right.
But as the skin would heal in half the time, it seems clinically, I don't know of any research to prove this, but people swear by it. And I've seen people with bleeding bowels for a long time, start using aloe vera, and within a few days, no more bleeding. How does that happen? Or, consuming it because of the burning pains and it going away, and people not taking their drugs for their acid reflux because the aloe vera works, as good or better.
Mm-hmm.
So I might not know of any research to prove this, but we definitely see it clinically. And that is the number one reason people are using it. They're also using it to lower their blood sugar levels and diabetes.
Yes.
But I think the thing to focus on is the gut health.
I agree, because it all starts there.
Yeah.
With everything.
We were talking a little bit earlier about nutrition,
Mm-hmm.
and prior to this call, and I talked about it a little bit as being the blood chemistry, which,
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, there's people that refer to the gut as the second brain.
Right.
When your blood chemistry changes, everything changes. Your blood and the easiest way to connect this, if I had a couple shots of whiskey, it would be probably a whole different conversation here, because my mind would function differently.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because the chemistry changes from something I put in my mouth. There's lots of ways to change the blood chemistry, and it affects how our bodies work. Most of these things that are going to really affect the blood go in through the mouth, and the body absorbs them.
Right.
If our gut is not working properly, a lot of things are not going to work properly. And it might affect our moods, our energy levels, how we feel, not only our gut function, but everything about us.
Mm-hmm.
And if we've irritated our guts so much to where they're not healthy and they're leaking, now the things we eat might pass into the bloodstream unprocessed, causing our immune system to go a little haywire and want to attack everything.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that is the beginning of the autoimmune disorder.
Yes, I would agree with that. I feel like when people are on proton pump inhibitors long term, some people are on them for 20 years, it just sets them up even more for this leaky gut. They're not absorbing the nutrients. Their gut lining, the epithelial tissue, is not, being made. It's not being turned over. Those cells are just not working very well. Therefore, we're not getting the nutrients for all the other things that are needed. And so with aloe being one of those things, help those cells replicate and to be healthy, it just seems like a no-brainer that is something. I mean, if it increases healing in 50% of the time, that's huge with people with these conditions. But to your point, you can't just, go through fast food drive-throughs 2 or 3 times a day or whatever, 5 times a week, and take aloe and think it's going to completely, undo all the damage.
Yeah. Also, if we think about the way, if we look at the chemistry in our blood affecting so many things,
Mm-hmm.
how many illnesses do we, as doctors, as people, as all the studying we do, we don't understand them. We've given them names, but we don't know the cause of these autoimmune problems, of the, chronic fatigue and the, the pain syndromes, the fibromyalgias and stuff. We can diagnose them, but we don't really know what causes them.
Mm-hmm.
Do we even, if we're healing the gut and putting in the proper chemistry, do we even have to name these illnesses?
Exactly.
Can't we kind of expect things to get well if we start making the right choices?
Mm-hmm.
I think that is probably one of the keys to understanding health, meaning we know a lot. We're doctors, and we go to school for a lot of years, and there's all kinds of books with all kinds of information. And as much as we know, we still don't know that much.
Right.
We don't know, we know this much compared to what this knows.
Exactly.
Somehow, when we put the right nutrition, the right fuel in our bodies, it somehow organizes. Even when we put bad stuff into it, somehow it knows to take the good parts out of it
Mm-hmm.
and turn it into more of who we are, to replace, dying unhealthy cells with good new ones, and to, fill them with this life that no doctor can give anybody.
Right.
There's this, beautiful knowledge and organization that happens when you have life in you that is so far above what we can possibly process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not smart enough to heal people. I'm smart enough to point them in a direction of making good decisions so that
Right.
they can have their best opportunity for optimal health and well-being.
Exactly. So educate, educate, educate. And what I tell my people a lot of the time is that our bodies are super, super smart. It wants to be healthy. It wants to, you know, like you said, filter out all the bad stuff, keep the good stuff to help us feel well. We just need to get out of its way.
Right.
And we need to help it along, and then we need to back off instead
Yeah.
of trying to interfere with, the quick fix, the, medication, the whatever, whatever that quick fix thing might be, just to get over a short term, like a symptom that we feel is a short term thing, but without dealing with what's causing it, it's sort of pointless, in my opinion.
Yeah, and if figuring out what's causing it can be a challenge, but let's say,
Yes.
well, what does it need? What does the body need? It needs
Mm-hmm.
nutrition, it needs exercise, it needs rest, it needs, proper mental well-being or a positive mental attitude. It needs a good, functioning nervous system.
Mm-hmm.
So we want to say, okay, how can we give it all those things? And we can break those down tremendously, like exercise. There's benefits to strength training and flexibility training and endurance training and
Yep.
cardiovascular. There's all kinds of aspects to that. And, when we talk about the nutrition, it's affected by so many other things than what we eat. We can break those down, but those are the basic things that we need, and we can dive into them. And as we dive into them, if you don't know what's causing your issue, as we break them down, we can't say, well, I'm deficient in that one. I know that, I don't exercise much. I do
Mm-hmm.
yoga. Okay, great. You're getting flexibility training, maybe a little endurance training and stuff. Are we getting any strength training? Maybe a little bit of that. We can see where the weaknesses are,
Mm-hmm.
and start to identify the causes of our health problems by making sure we're getting all of those 5 points that I mentioned.
Right.
So I think that's a key to getting well. When it comes to the nutrition, I think emphasizing gut health is probably probably best start.
Yeah, it's a great place to start. So, as we talked about before, what my focus is thyroid health. And a lot of the people I work with are dealing with either an undiagnosed or misdiagnosed or however you want to say it, with thyroid condition. They are suspecting that they have, but their results always come back normal, quote unquote normal with the TSH. And that's usually all that's been tested. But they have every classic sign and symptom, anything from the textbook they are walking in with, along with a bunch of other potential autoimmune diseases. But gut health is so much a part of it. There's hardly anybody that I work with that does not have a gut health issue. And so, really focusing on adding this aloe in would be great for them. Just by what we were talking about, just knowing the benefits of how this improves gut health will help thyroid patients greatly.
Yeah, thyroid, in particular, is one of those things where we've really seen an increase in people with thyroid conditions
Mm-hmm.
over the past, couple decades. If we were to ask why, I do believe it comes down to gut health and, the immune system attacking. And there's a lot of good reasons why people are having less gut health than ever before,
Yeah.
when we consider all the chemicals that are now in our diets, when you just think about it. So aloe vera, definitely a beneficial component to healing, getting rid of the chemicals, of course. If we have time, we can go into some of those causes, what they are, where are the chemicals coming from. Just a real, can I ask you a couple questions about chemistry?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Would you agree that most people would say that antibiotics kill your gut flora?
I would say most people would agree with that.
Now, most people probably, I would say, but I don't take antibiotics, right? We've kind of
Mm-hmm.
realized that antibiotics are limited for when you really need them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people realize how many antibiotics are in the animal foods that they're consuming now.
Okay. Yeah.
I remember something Jordan Rubin once said. He said, people think that animals are being treated with antibiotics. He said the animals are given antibiotics in their diets so they can be mistreated. And that makes sense.
Wow.
It's true. It's part of their feed. And if you're consuming conventional animal food, you're getting your supply of antibiotics. And when it comes to things like genetically modified, I'm obviously, people are realizing that doesn't necessarily mean bigger, better corn or bigger, better fruits and vegetables. But a lot of people now know, we've heard of Roundup Ready, that the flagship GMO was corn being Roundup Ready, meaning the farmers can spray it with chemicals that are designed to kill. And it wouldn't kill the plant, but the weeds around it. And that's why we grow more corn, because there's less competition among the weeds, with the weeds. And the other modification made to kill insects. And we're consuming these foods that have chemicals that are designed to kill insects and weeds. Is it any wonder why our guts are getting killed off?
Right.
When we think about, I drink filtered water. If I wasn't, it would be chlorinated. What's the purpose of chlorine? To kill. Right. That's why it's in the water. When we're eating food, if you go, there's a list of preservatives on there. What's the purpose? And we'll sit on this one for a moment. Don't answer it. What's the purpose of a preservative? People listening, what's the purpose of a preservative? A lot of people will answer that. Most people will answer, it's to make the food last longer. It's not. That's the side effect. The purpose of the preservative is to kill. A food scientist or a cosmetic scientist is going to use a combination of preservatives to kill mold, yeast, fungus, and bacteria.
Right.
And when you eat this stuff because it's in your food, does it know to stop killing?
Right.
The obvious answer is no. And we just put a little bit in. Okay, if I gave you something with just a little bit of arsenic, a little bit of poison, a little rat poison, would you consume it? Would you eat it?
Probably not.
Essentially, that's what we're doing when we eat food that has preservatives in it, which is pretty much everything in the aisles in the grocery store.
Right.
The things we're putting in our bodies, we have this chemical attack as it goes in to our gut that's supposed to be alive with this microbiome, this delicate balance of bacteria and yeast, and believe it or not, even viruses. And there's all these organisms and genetic matter in the case of virus, all of these things in there that we're attacking with chemistry, destroying the balance of things natural. Your gut becomes raw. You take away that microbiome layer and it's irritated, beginning to leak. And we can add aloe and it can speed up the healing process. We probably want to stop putting the chemicals in. We might want to start consuming fermented foods or maybe probiotics and chew our food better and start eating real foods. It's not just one thing. If it was just aloe vera, well, you're not using it any different than a drug. You got symptoms, acid reflux, and you drink the aloe and it keeps your acid reflux. Yay, let's go to McDonald's. Change. I'm not saying you can't go to McDonald's. I don't go to McDonald's, but the majority of your life and the things you put in there, it's fuel.
Right.
It's not, we don't eat for fun. We
shouldn't be eating for fun.
Fuel our bodies. Hey, you can now and then, but if that's your every meal and you think, oh, what's going to taste good today, and you haven't nurtured your palate to like real food, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, that's a kind of a little game people have to play it themselves. And people, I find, when they're trying to change their diets, are a little bit like toddlers. Like they want what they want when they want it, and they want how they want it and what they're used to having, and the habits. And you get into disordered eating with that too. But the whole thing about changing the palate, I like how you said that. The more healthy, whole and real foods you're eating, the more you look forward to those, the more that you have an expanded palate, the more micronutrients are coming into your system if you are eating more of those types of foods, which only benefits the gut and can help along with like what we're talking about with the aloe or other things.
Let me risk offending some of your audience. Can I do that?
Sure.
I have your permission? Okay, great. When I started with this product line with the aloe vera, early on we did trade shows. And, we would take this aloe and, we'd pour taste tests to people. And some people would say, oh my goodness, this is amazing. It's the best aloe I ever had. Or, it doesn't have much flavor. And the next person might drink it out of the same bottle they'd have their own separate cup, of course,
Mm-hmm.
and they drink it and they go, oh, I can never drink this. The
Mm-hmm.
people that, oh, I can never drink this are usually the ones that need it the most. And
Yes.
how am I going to offend people? Some people know that they are not necessarily pictures of health.
Right.
And we are not all, genetically equal. We are different, and some people have more struggles than others.
Mm-hmm.
But we all have the ability to choose. And
Right.
some people's wills are stronger than others, and some people naturally, their genes lead them to enjoy um, real foods better. I have a
Mm-hmm.
young kid that since he was a few years old and could walk, he'd go outside and pick off the fruit trees and just eat. It was
Mm-hmm.
just natural in him. To him, that was food.
Right.
I have one that loves fruit. I have one that hates fruit, but he loves vegetables.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have two that would, just like to eat whatever they want to eat.
Mm-hmm.
We're all a little bit different and have different challenges in this, but we all have the ability to choose to override our natural bend
Mm-hmm.
in the things that we desire.
Yeah.
And when you do that consistently, eventually you start enjoying and appreciating it and feeling better. And it's funny, a lot of times you don't notice yourself feeling better, but
Right.
when you go back to the other stuff, you feel yourself worse.
Yeah. Then
um, it's a
perspective.
unfortunate thing about doing this, but you want to make those changes. If you haven't made that change, well, your listeners are listening to this show. They know these things already. They wouldn't be listening, right? Some might be getting in, on the early end, but we're all in this process of learning more and changing.
Right.
I hope this is an encouragement to change, take that next step, push it a little further, and eliminate some of those things that aren't real food.
Well, and that's kind of what you're saying with my own two kids. They probably started out eating a lot better than maybe some of their peers, in the beginning, and then it slowly improved, and we've dealt with some pickiness and some food sensitivities and things like that. But overall, so now they're 16 and 19, and when they eat out with their friends or just for different, if we're traveling and we're eating out more than normal, they don't like it. They notice the difference. And to
Yeah.
me, that's kind of a win, that they're like, oh no, I just would rather have you cook something for us at home or just make something normal at home rather than be in a restaurant or whatever. I mean, restaurants are great and fine and whatever, and you can make choices even in places that maybe aren't as healthy, but it's that to me was huge with my own kids, just knowing how much they struggle with, so one of them in particular with the pickiness of things, where food was a real struggle for a while, getting her to eat anything that was, more than just a couple foods. Like, it was a very limited palate, and it's just expanded ever since. And she notices a difference. They both notice the difference of when they're eating poorly and when they're, not, and they choose to eat mostly whole foods most of
That's
the time.
great.
It's not
Yeah.
perfect. So it can happen. If it can happen in kids, adults can make those transitions too. It's not the whole, you can't teach an old dog new tricks. I don't think that's, it might be a little stubborn. It might be stubborn because you are more set in your ways with how you eat, but it's definitely something that can be changed and can be very beneficial in actually not a very long time, I think. So you think of I go back to your patient you first started talking about, where within a week, someone that sick made that much stride. Whereas that's pretty phenomenal when you think of how sick she was. It makes sense that she might feel something drastic when she does drastic changes. But maybe the average, maybe unhealthy person, who doesn't have a diagnosed condition or cancer like that, it might take a little bit longer to see the changes. But I swear, like you said, when you kind of go off the rails and backslide in some of your habits, is that perspective, that change, that you're going, oh yeah, that was, what I was doing was good, and now I'm not feeling so good. And I know that it's just learning, and it's not a linear path.
And she will never go back to her old diet.
Right.
You know, she didn't know how good she could feel and how life-changing it would be for her to
Mm-hmm.
consume a real anti-cancer diet. And it doesn't mean that she doesn't enjoy her food. She probably enjoys it more than ever before now.
Right.
There's so many good foods out there, good real food. So
That's
it's a matter of
amazing.
doing it, making that change.
Yeah. I want to touch on a little bit because people talk about this all the time, especially when you were talking about food quality and chemicals in our foods and that type of thing. The other thing that comes up is organic. You know, people kind of think that if you buy organic, you know, that you're 100% doing so much better for you. Sometimes I think, I mean, there's, you know, studies that show that there's obviously better nutrient levels in your produce if they're organic, and obviously you're not taking in as many chemicals, but I don't know. What can you tell us about that? Is organic really worth the money
Yeah,
all the time?
you know, there's organic is a set of standards, and
Right.
it's an important set of standards, but it's not the ultimate standard. You can have things in your organic, like that you can have preservatives in organic foods, and
Mm-hmm.
we just talked about the fact that, you know, preservatives are there to kill.
Right.
So how can that be? It doesn't mean this is your best option. You can have things that are not organic, but they're actually grown or made better than organic. They're just not
Mm-hmm.
certified.
Right.
This is where
It's a
you really want to get
process.
to know your food sources. And your food source shouldn't be, you know, always the grocery store.
Right.
If you are going to the grocery store, it is nice to find out, okay, where do you get your fruits and vegetables from? Hopefully they source them locally and you can actually know something about those farms or the growers. I can be certified organic and still get around a lot of the rules because they only inspect once a year or whatever the case is.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a guarantee. I remember there was, you know, things coming in from China with certified organic that weren't. You know,
Right.
it's not the ultimate. It doesn't mean that everyone's always breaking the rules.
Right.
It's one of those
Mm-hmm.
things where we want to get in touch with our own food system. Hopefully we're contributing to the food that we eat. Hopefully we're growing some food.
Mm-hmm.
You know, think back in the day when, you know, you grew one item and your neighbor grew something else and you traded, and that's how
Mm-hmm.
you got your variety of foods. And you
Right.
knew how they were growing it. In fact, back then when there wasn't chemicals, you know, it was all done pretty much right.
Yeah.
Organic means we don't use chemicals for the most part in the growing
Mm-hmm.
process, in the harvesting process, certain things that aren't allowed. But chemicals are everywhere. We can't stop radiation showing up in the farmlands in central United States from Fukushima,
Mm-hmm.
yet they can still be organic.
Right.
So we got to start thinking of our food differently. When it comes to aloe vera, I became very familiar with farming practices and realized a lot of the deception that happens in a lot of the foods that we get. And I'll give you a couple of quick examples. Um, I have an agreement with a aloe grower that grows our plants in particular on his aloe
Mm-hmm.
farm. He also provides aloe to a lot of other aloe companies, but they're
Mm-hmm.
very different processes.
Okay.
These other aloe companies, I've never seen them out on the farm. When we harvest, we supervise every harvest. We go there, we watch, and they use our equipment that we provide that we sent from the United States. What's our equipment? What's different? We don't
Mm-hmm.
pasteurize, we chill. We get it cold to put it into the containers that go into the freezer. We skip the filters, we skip the preservatives, but I've seen them make aloe vera for other companies. What do? They filter it, they add big bags of diatomaceous earth and activated carbon, stir it into a slurry, put it through a pressure filter, pasteurize it, add chemical preservatives, and then hot fill it in the big blue 55-gallon drums that have food grade plastic bags in them.
Mm-hmm.
And then they put the lid because they want to know that it's in there hot, so that once we seal it, we know nothing's going to get in, and it was in there at 170 degrees in the plastic.
Okay.
And then what do? They ship those barrels to, one primary customer in the United States that sends them out to all of the other aloe vera companies that reprocess them and sometimes add their new set of preservatives. Those are the preservatives you see on the label, not the ones that the original farmer put in.
Okay.
And then sometimes they even put them in glass bottles to sell. So you think, oh, this is better because it's in glass
Sure.
and it's certified organic.
Hmm.
Yeah, but what about all that stuff that just happened to it?
Yeah, there's lots in the process that we don't know about as consumers. We wouldn't know that.
And it doesn't matter if we're talking aloe vera or orange juice.
Hmm.
You know, what are the processes? Yeah, but I bought it in glass jar and it's certified organic.
Right.
That is not the ultimate
Yeah,
standard.
that's interesting. Yeah, and that's the thing that, going back to the food, just based on what you were saying now, we need to know for the most part, or as much as we possibly can, where our food is coming from. We need to know where our products are coming from, how they're made, so that we can just be as healthy as possible. So with something like your product, you can just rest assured you don't have to do all the background checks and the thinking and the research, as a consumer, if you are knowing that you're sourcing it from someone like you, where you get your product and how you go about the process. So that sort of takes another thing on the to-do list of people who are trying to be healthy, because that can get overwhelming too. So you have to align yourself with healthcare practitioners who are, just have a lot of integrity and want the best for the people that they're working with. So that's really good. I appreciate you sharing that with us. I would not have known that. That's great.
Well, thank you. And, at the same time, people don't stop buying organic.
Right. Yeah, don't do that. But just don't think it's the end all be all that,
That's right.
And there's a lot of junky organic foods, so
It just doesn't, things don't have to be organic. But when it does say organic, we know that it's, not GMO. That's
mhm,
important because GMO doesn't mean better.
right.
Usually it means more chemicals.
Yes, for sure. Okay, so how can people get a hold of you?
Oh, we recently changed our web address. A lot of people know us as aloe1.com. We are now
Hmm.
haleynutrition.com. If you go to
Perfect.
aloe1.com, you're still going to end up in the same place.
Okay.
And, sometimes at a show like this, people do have questions. You can pop over to the website there, fill out the contact form. And if you, mention my name, they'll route that email to me so that I can respond personally. So feel free to stop by haleynutrition.com. And by the way, Tiffany, if anyone is interested in our products from hearing the show, I do want them to, we're going to create a coupon code for you. Okay.
Perfect.
If it
Perfect.
works, let's use not rock bottom wellness. We'll shorten it. We'll just make it RBW. And
Perfect.
if people want to shop on our site and use that, we'll make sure that there's a nice discount on that first order.
Yeah, that would be great. I know I'm going to be checking out some of these products. I've already been on the website looking around and super intrigued by it. And also just want to learn more about all these things so I can help people feel as best they possibly can, starting with gut health, which is something that's so important as we have discussed. So anyway, I thank you for being here. Is there anything else that you'd like to share or touch on that we
I
haven't
just
talked
want
about
to thank you
already?
for all you do and helping so many people by getting different perspectives as you did here today with me. Thank you for what you do. It's people like you that are really making a change in this world and helping people live better.
Thank you. I appreciate that. You're very welcome. All right. Take care.
Thank you, Tiffany. Bye-bye.
Bye.